Welcome back to the Stuff About Money podcast. I am your host, Erik Garcia, certified financial planner. And today I am joined once again by my friend, Carey Wallace. Carey, how are you?
I'm doing well, Erik. I hope you're doing well also.
I am. I am. I'm glad you came back. So, y'all, Carey is a fractional CFO, and she works in the independent insurance agency space. So, Carey, you sit in with a lot of agency owners when they're looking to get valuations because maybe they're looking to sell, they're maybe looking to buy. So they bring you in to really to number one get their books in order, understand what they can do to increase the value of their agencies, and also to understand the value of maybe an agency that they're purchasing. Did I say that right?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for the agency owner, um, like myself, the majority of our net worth is tied up in the value of our agency. So we violate every rule of diversification, right? Put all your eggs in one basket, but um, our agencies typically, if they're run efficiently, are profitable, they
Sure.
cash flow well, they provide for a nice lifestyle um, for us. And the reason that I wanted to have you back today, I don't know if we talked about this on a podcast in the past, or if you and I were just talking about it in passing one day, but I wanted to talk about this idea that our agencies should not be our retirement plan. I come across this from time to time where agency owners might not be saving outside of their business, and they see their eventual um, sale, a liquidation event, as, hey, I'm going to sell and then I'm going to ride off into the sunset and fund my retirement with the sale of my agency. And I just wanted to have a conversation with you around this to get your thoughts on that idea.
Yeah, Erik, first of all, thank you for having me back on the show. I always love a conversation with you because you're coming at money one way, I'm coming at money another way, and I think together we get to a pretty cool place. So I appreciate you having me on. Um, so whether or not an agency should view their or an agency owner should view their agency as their retirement plan, I think it's a piece of the retirement plan, but it shouldn't be the whole retirement plan. I think um, there's danger in doing that. And I also believe that if that is a large piece of what you're planning on for your retirement, don't wait until you're really close to retirement to understand the true value of your agency. If you're just listening to the headlines that are out there, you
Mm.
could be really misled on exactly what the agency's value is, because you and I both know you can have two agencies that are both $1 million in revenue, have vastly different valuations based on the makeup of that agency and the risk inside that agency. So I think there's a little bit of um, danger in not really understanding the asset you have and the value that it is, especially if it makes up a large percentage of your retirement. And to me, that's one of the biggest downfalls of that. If you're listening to the headlines and you're applying them to your agency and you're wrong, you could really find yourself in a situation when you have to work way longer than what you want to.
Let's sit in this point for a couple minutes because I think there's a couple things here I want to unpack a little bit. Um, the first thing is, and I don't think this is exclusive to the insurance space. I think most business owners think that, and I don't want to offend any business owner, okay? So this is not personal to anybody. I think most of us who own businesses think that our businesses are worth more than they really are.
I think you're not wrong there. There's more oftentimes than not when I do evaluation for an agency that they say, "Really? Oh goodness, I hadn't thought
Hmm.
about my business that way. I understand what you're saying, but in my mind, the number was this." And so I think there's a lot of noise because the headlines would lead you to believe that all agencies can command a certain multiple or a certain valuation, and they don't give you the cliff notes or even the details underneath that to say, but the agency has to be profitable, the agency has to be transferable, the agency has to be growing, the agency has to be whatever. They just say the going rate for agencies is X. And
Mhm.
you need to dig deeper to know what your agency's situation is in order to truly understand the value of it.
Yeah. Uh, so number one, we often think our businesses are worth more than they really are because we don't
Yes.
understand what goes into valuing our business in some of those components. For example, maybe my agency that I own, that I'm not involved in the day to day, my agency can operate without me. Right? We met with a business owner in totally different industry, and this was the conversation where
Mm-hmm.
neither of us needed to be in the actual business for it to operate. We could disappear for months and the business would continue to operate. Maybe I could command a slightly higher multiple because of that, because it doesn't rely on me versus the agency owner who's like involved in the day to day operations. If they're not there, things come to a screeching halt.
Yeah,
Right.
so your agency is much more transferable, which means it's not dependent or won't be hindered by your presence or your lack of presence in the agency, which is one of the many factors that we look at in valuation. So, for instance, my business, if I disappeared tomorrow, I could not say that same statement.
Yeah.
I am working on making it transferable, but we are in different places as business owners, and therefore the value of my business and your business from that risk factor would be very, very different.
Well, that's a
100% true.
that's a good point. So the insurance agency doesn't need me.
That's right.
But if I don't show up daily on the financial planning side, it comes to a screeching halt, right?
That's right. That's right.
I get paid to show up and to work and to deliver financial advice and investment management to my clients. If I don't show up, I don't get paid.
That's right.
And I think something needs to be said here because I was looking at a statistic earlier that said something like 80% of small businesses don't sell, are not marketable. And I think the reality is, by and large, even if you have a poorly run insurance agency, it's a fairly marketable business. Now, the multiple you can command obviously won't be nearly as high if it's
That's right.
poorly run, but by and large, one of the cool things about the insurance space is, and this would also be true in the financial planning investment spaces, is our businesses are marketable. Now, how
Absolutely
easily
true.
transferable they are, it's a different
Right.
question.
Yeah.
We were looking at
Yeah.
purchasing a book recently, and it's in a very specific community. And the concern that I had was, man, we are outsiders. It was a specific
Mm-hmm.
community. We're outsiders. How, from a retention standpoint. So from a valuation standpoint, I was like, that's a concern for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe an issue for that individual who's trying to sell outside of that community as well, that they may be able to command a multiple somewhere else higher if it's within the community. I guess the point goes back to understanding the value of your agency is really important and not overestimating its value. Uh,
100% true. Yep.
okay, so one of the issues here about seeing your business as your retirement plan is that we overvalue. We think we're going to get more than we're going to get, and we really don't. I was talking to this was an agency owner, probably a little older than me, maybe mid 40s, and they were looking to sell. I don't think they were looking to retire. They were looking to do something else,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because of the grind of the business, which is something I want to talk about here in a second. And when it was all said and done, I think the estimated value was somewhere in the $3 million range or something. But by the time they factored in taxes,
Mm.
paying off debt, and a few other things, they were walking away with like less than $1 million. And my point to him was, what in the world are you going to do
Hmm.
I mean, 1 million sounds like a lot of money, but there's no way you can generate nearly the cash flow, the revenue with 1 million in cash, no matter what you go do. You can't go buy commercial property. I mean, it's not a good, it's not a good deal. It doesn't make sense. In his
Right.
mind, he was going to walk away with more. And I think that's one of the risks is when we rely on the sale of our business, we may not walk away with what we expect. And if we're planning a particular lifestyle in retirement or post agency ownership, and we don't walk away with enough cash, it's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have several clients that are my fractional CFO clients, and we've done exactly what you're saying and say, hey, listen, I want to retire in the next 5 to 8 years. What do I need to do to grow this business so I can sell
Mhm.
it for an amount that will result in context of their other assets, how will I create enough income from my business, income from my other assets in order to support my lifestyle for the period of time that I think that I will be on this earth? And it's been pretty eye-opening. The power is if you start 5 to 8 years prior, you can change the number. But if you're 6 months away from wanting to retire, there's nothing you can do about the value of your agency in that 6 months, other than clean up
Yeah.
your financials and maybe look at more than one buyer. But the business is what the business is at that point, right?
Yeah. So you said something here that's interesting in light of your other assets. Right.
Right.
So this goes back to what I said earlier about, we violate every rule of diversification. We put all our eggs in one basket. And I'll be the first to say that our agencies generate a good cash flow.
Hmm.
They hold their values pretty well. And I mean, it's not that difficult to increase the value of your agency. I mean, it's a good
No.
return on your investment when you pump it back into the agency. However, this was the question I was asking myself as I was preparing to have this conversation with you as an agency owner. If I believe so much in the value of the agency that I can invest in it and get a really good return on my dollar, go out and hire new staff, go out and hire new producers. Why don't I do that? Why do I diversify outside of the agency? And this goes back to this idea of other assets. Um, Number one, I think there's a fair amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Not stability, but maybe security when you have multiple streams of revenue, right?
100%. Yeah.
So if all my revenue is coming from this one business and this one business, the insurance business, I mean, let's be honest, the past 4 years, 5 years, it's been a grind. It has been hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
All my friends around the country have started feeling it. Had they been feeling what we've been feeling on the coast for a long time, they're starting to feel it, but it's hard, it's a grind. And if all of my revenue is coming from this one source that is incredibly stressful, and my entire future is being, you know, based on that one revenue source, for me, that creates a lot of anxiety in me. So
Absolutely. 100%.
So for me to bank all my retirement, all my future on this one asset, no, I understand what an incredible privilege to be able to have this business, to have my financial planning business, and to be able to fund some other
Yeah.
accounts and some other investments. But for me, that brings me a fair amount of comfort and security, and um, I'm willing to forego the possible higher return in my agency to know that I've got an account over here that I'm funding that is um that's liquid,
Hmm.
that if tomorrow I decide I am out, I'm done, this is too many hurricanes, too many this, it's just too complicated. It gives me comfort to know that I've got liquidity over here, and there's this pressure doesn't exist to have to command the highest possible multiple.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So what you're saying is reminding me of two things. So, I know that you have listeners that are outside the insurance industry as well, but, um, so when my husband and I were first married, he worked for a company called Oracle.
Mhm.
And he sold software for Oracle. He did very, very well. So his compensation was tied up in Oracle. He also got stock options from Oracle. His life insurance was in Oracle. So we are just like, we're young. I was 21 when I got married. So by the time we were 27, we were thinking about having children. So we got a financial advisor. We started thinking of, like, we started adulting, if you will, right? And we went, and our portfolio was like 90% Oracle. It was a nice little
Yeah.
portfolio. We had a savings account, but it was 90% hint, like contingent on Oracle. And she's like, if I was going to bet on a company, and at the time, right in the tech boom, you're betting the right place, but it's all in one place. You've got to diversify this, or what happens when the tech bubble bursts, which by the way, it did. So that led us to selling some stock of Oracle
Yeah.
at the high, which is great, but it was all because our advisor said, you've got so much there. It was unintentional. And I think when you own your own business, that's a very easy thing to do because it is your world, and
Mhm.
you're not thinking about what happens if the hard market does something different. What happens if COVID happens and I'm in a niche that's restaurants? What happens if whatever? There's pressure, and honestly, the pressure to grow becomes so hard that I don't want that pressure anymore. If you haven't put another savings account away, you could find yourself locked in that you have to do something rather than you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So it made me think of that, but I fully believe that independent insurance agents, I will tell you that I think it's made more millionaires than probably any other industry because of the
I believe
renewable
it.
income, the profitability that's there. You can live a very nice lifestyle.
Mhm.
And you can also, if you're living beyond your means or living and not putting that away, you can find yourself to have to continue to work.
Mhm.
So being really smart about what that profit is and putting it away can give you options. There's no two ways around that, Erik.
Yeah.
There isn't.
One of the conversations I've been having recently, you and I had this conversation about the importance of having a financial advisor who understands your agency finances,
Yeah,
and working with agency owners. One of the things I've learned is, we all want to be more conscious of how we spend money. We all want to be conscious. Most of us, we overspend, so we want to maybe be a little bit more prudent. We want to make sure we're spending money, you know, more in alignment with what's important to us, with our value. But let's be honest, budgeting is hard, and cutting back when
yeah,
we're used to certain types of lifestyle is hard. And what I've learned is sometimes that's a losing battle with some agency owners. It's not a question of, okay, we need to be able to save here. It's hey, go out and sell 3 more policies so that we can fund this, right?
hmm.
So
Oh
okay,
yeah, sell your way
you
out
can
of it.
cut over
Sure.
here, or you can go sell more. And I found that to be the case, particularly with y- y- that's the mentality, is like, well, I can just create more revenue tomorrow if I need it,
Sure.
right? If I
Sure.
need it to, so what we end up doing is maybe we forego putting money aside because we can just create more tomorrow. And I think this is true of entrepreneurs, because that's like the entrepreneurial spirit, right? Like
100%. Yeah.
idle money is kryptonite for entrepreneurs. I mean, like, if I have money sitting somewhere, like, I need to do something with it. It needs to be working for me.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about, like, purposing money, and once you purpose money, it becomes a lot easier to know what to do with it. Um, I've got an account that's purposed, what I call it my work optional account, because one day I might not want to operate the agency anymore. So I've got this account. Once it gets to a certain amount, man, work becomes optional. I can go hire someone and pay them what I was paying myself to operate. I could walk away. I have options, right? Um, Let me go back to something you were talking about we're talking about Oracle and this idea of
Yeah. Yeah.
all of your eggs in one basket, and you mentioned it, and I just want to highlight it because I think it's really important. Um, that the macroeconomic environment changes over time, right? And what the environment we're in today might not be the environment that we're in when you're ready to walk away. So the trouble with having all your eggs in one basket in your agency today is that you're valuing it based off of today, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
That's right.
Now, we can be we can have a fair amount of confidence and say, we can look at the history of the insurance space, and it's again, it's a very marketable, transferable business. But what's I mean, I say that, but like, goodness gracious, the with rates where they are, with reinsurance rates, maybe they might start coming down a little bit, but like, what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years? Personal lines, is it um do we become less relevant
I know.
as agents? There's commission compression going on. Commissions are
Sure.
dropping. Do we become expendable at some point? Does the valuations drop because clients are going direct to or companies are going to direct to market? um there's a lot of unknowns and uncertainty. So to start diversifying your wealth outside of your agency, and this doesn't mean like forego growth and just go invest in the stock market. Like this
Right.
is
I
is
hear you.
is sitting down and prudently saying, "Hey, I'm going to start funding something else as I continue." You could do it, it's not a mutually exclusive endeavor,
Right. Right. Well, I
right?
think, Erik, I fully agree with that. And I think that's true in any industry. Like in ours, it was in software, but in the insurance industry, or the one that I'm more familiar with and that we're talking about today, I think it is easy to be on autopilot and not think about it in the large picture of what you're trying to do. And then all of a sudden, 10, 15 years have passed. You took distributions from the agency to live a lifestyle when you could have taken distributions, lived a different lifestyle, invested in something else, property, whatever it is. And now you've got a revenue stream over here that gives you that, what did you call it? Don't have to work fund. Is that what that
Work
was?
optional.
Work
Work
optional
optional.
fund. But I think what happens is the agencies are profitable and they create an incredible lifestyle, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's when it is the lifestyle only and the agency isn't going to pay you because it's paid you now, but it won't pay you as well as you want it to later. And you've not invested in another revenue stream, that you find yourself with no work option, fund for yourself. Like that's when we run into problems because we haven't zoomed out and looked at what's the opportunity cost of those funds.
Hmm.
You can reinvest in your agency and growth and whatever and bet on that high multiple, or you can take part of it and do that. You can take part of it and live a great lifestyle, and part of it to invest in another revenue stream and to give yourself some breathing room is what I would say.
Yeah. So you hit on something that I riff on all the time, is that income does not equal wealth.
That's right.
And just because you have a high income does not mean you're building wealth. And the wealthy people have learned the skill of converting income into wealth. So you're talking about, so I'm a business owner, and let's say I have $1 million agency and I run a 20% profit every year. So I pay myself to do the job of whatever I do in the agency, and then I have another 200,000 of profit. And
That's
I'm gonna
right.
take that money and I'm gonna travel the world, and I'm gonna buy expensive cars and
I'm gonna
whatever.
have a really nice watch. I'm gonna
Nice
do all
watch
kinds of
and
stuff.
fancy
Yeah,
shoes, and nothing wrong
there
with
it
all those
is.
things, guys. So nothing, but I'm gonna do that. I'm not building wealth. But if I
Right.
say, you know what, I take the profit and work hard. I'm going to spend some of it, might give some of it, but I'm also going to take a
Sure.
portion of it and I'm going to drop it into something that is going to continue to work for me, an asset that's going to continue to. Well, I define an investment as something, as money you spend with the intention of it making more money for you. So I'm going to
That's right.
buy something that's going to make more money for me. So I'm going to buy some type of a stock, an investment, or I'm going to dump it into some type of corporate retirement plan that I put into place.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and then that income, right, is now I bought something that's going to continue to work for me. It's going to generate some stream of income for me. Maybe not right now, but in the future.
Sure. It's going to
And I think,
it is not going to be spent and gone. It's going to be spent and become more is the point.
and I think that's the decision that the agency owner has to make is I've got this profit. How much should I reinvest in my company? How much should I take to spend? How much should I invest elsewhere? And that's I think that's where personal finance um, becomes personal. I think part of it becomes like, what do you value and what's important to you? I was meeting with an agency owner um, recently, and she is done being owned by the agency. Like she's like, I have no time. I'm constantly managing people, and she just wants out. Like I
Mhm.
just want out. Um,
I get it. I hear it all the time. I met with an agency for lunch today, and honestly, her answer was, "Listen, it's not that I'm owned by the agency, but my life situation is time is more valuable to me right now than running an agency, and I've got to figure out, is now the time to exit? Is 5
mhm,
years from now time to exit?" And the good news is she has options.
yeah.
Life events. I actually just saw a post on Facebook before I got on this call where they were talking about agents have an unexpected life event that changes either their ability to work, or there's a sudden death, or there's whatever. Hate to talk about that, but the reality is lots of times that's when people call me because now they're thinking about, oh goodness, life is, I know it has now changed. Now what can I do? And
Mhm.
this is one of my largest assets. What's the value of it? And is now the right time to exit? And Erik, it's so sad when someone comes and has that conversation with you and they haven't thought about this beforehand. The reality is your decisions you're making 10 years prior change what those options are for you. And just engaging with someone in advance, a personal financial coach, someone who can help you change the value of your agency, makes those options so much more vast, and the pressure that you feel when something like that happens, hopefully a lot less than what it is for the person that I met with today. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, and just imagine um, how less that pressure is if you have something else
Right.
generating or potentially generating revenue for you, other than having to rely solely on squeezing every possible dollar from the agency. There's
Yeah,
constant new input into our lives.
that's
And,
right.
I can have this beautiful long-term plan, but
Yep.
there's something around the corner that I just can't plan for. I can't see. And the
Right.
best way to plan for uncertainty is to have liquidity,
That's
right?
right.
That if all
Yeah.
of my money is tied up in I don't care how much potential return. I don't care, if it's a good startup and you're gonna be like rich one day when it pays off. But if all my money is tied up in a business or an asset that's illiquid,
Yep.
and if something happens to me tomorrow and I need to get my hands on cash, I don't care if your net worth is $10 million. It's
So if you have all of it in an asset that isn't liquid and now it's urgent, guess what just happened to that
buy or
asset?
sale, lost value
100% it
like
goes
that.
down because it's urgent. You don't have
Yeah.
time, you don't have whatever. So now it's a quick thing. And whatever caused it to become urgent,
Yeah.
if it's tied to the performance of the business as well, like we just were talking about in the beginning of this, like if it's something that happened to the owner that has all the relationships and manages 60% of the book of business and is the mayor of the town and everybody knows them. Now we just made the value of that asset drop.
Mhm.
And oh, by the way, if their staff gets uncomfortable and thinks, I don't know the future, and they start leaving, just dropped again more. So 100% having those options relieves the pressure of knowing what to do when that time happens. Absolutely. So you can't view the agency and the agency alone as your future plan, because sadly things happen. And if it is, you have less options than someone who has diversified. No question around that.
And here's the irony of it. The more diversified you are, the more confident you can be in the
That's right.
value of your agency, the more confident you can be in the value that you can get for it.
Amen. Yeah, I
Right.
totally agree with that.
It's interesting to me. I tell people all the time because we one of the first things I don't care who you are, I don't care how much money you make. To me, there's a handful of fundamental things in personal finance that you just have to like have in order. Number one, you got to be able to get your hands on cash in the event of an emergency. Again, doesn't
Yep.
matter who you are. Number two, you have to be spending aware. You have to have a good idea of how you're spending your money. I'm not talking about budgeting. You just have to know where you're spending your money. That's like fundamental. Understand where my cash flow is going. And then number three, you need to start being intentional about where you want your money to go. What am I going to be funding? Right. And
Yep.
that gets more into the budgeting, but it could be like really specific and intentional budgeting. I want to make sure I'm saving 10% of my income. I want to make sure that I'm giving so much to particular charities. I want to make sure that I'm throwing X amount towards student loan debt, whatever. So um, those are like the three fundamental things. So the first one I said is to make sure you can get your hands on cash. The less cash you can get your hands on, the more important it is to have that money like in like something that is so not risky.
That's right.
The more cash you have, it gives you freedom to say, hey, you know what? I can start to take a little bit more risk with my money. And it's the same thing
That's
with
right.
our agencies is when I have liquidity, when I have sufficient liquidity, then you have the confidence and the ability to say, hey, I can do things in my agency that I might not otherwise been able to do. I can go hire a COO. It's risky. I
Mhm.
don't have the funds, but man, that payoff might make more sense. But if I don't have liquidity,
Can't do
that
it.
decision, well, you can, but that decision becomes a little bit more risky,
That's right.
right? Um,
Well,
and
I
a little bit
think
more
not
anxiety
only
inducing.
right, but I think if you aren't doing, like, if you're running an agency, you're taking distributions, it's fueling a lifestyle, and you keep doing that over and over. Honestly, Erik, I think that's why out of the 40,000 independent agents that exist in our industry, a lot of them do not get beyond 500 to 750 in revenue, because you
Mm,
have to invest in order to grow to the next level. So then you're there and you find yourself with a lifestyle, and that is what the profitability goes to. You're not investing for anything else, you're not investing in the agency, and it becomes harder and harder and harder to operate that agency. So that is also part of this. It has to be a balance. So I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about that as well.
let's talk
If
about that.
you're running, yeah, if you're running an
Yeah.
agency and the profitability is going towards a lifestyle, and you're not investing in technology, you're not investing in the infrastructure, you're not investing in how to attract talent to your agency, you will find it harder to compete. And therefore, you don't have as many options, but now you still have to work in an environment that's harder to succeed in. So there's another side to it as well.
Mm.
There's this conversation is about balance, not about doing one or other. It's about how do I make sure that I leverage what's happening in my agency to create options for the future. That's it. And I think it's an and, not an or. I think there's an and in what we're saying is how to create those options.
It's 100. It's 100. I mean, I can tell you it's an and because that's that's how I operate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so a couple things that you said there. No, I lost my train of thought here. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can get it back. Do you think that people get stuck at that 500 to 700 revenue because they don't have the mindset of an owner and they have the mindset of like the technician, the worker, in the business? Is that it? Is it a mindset thing?
I think that it's a combination of a couple of things. I think, first of all, when you're growing your agency, you have to invest in people, in technology, in infrastructure, and somehow pay yourself as well. I mean, the reality is a scratch agency is a hard thing and it takes a lot of decisions in order to get from A to B.
Mhm.
But if you're able to find a balance with, okay, I'm going to invest and put some of the infrastructure in place, and then I'm going to add my first staff person, which is going to allow me a little bit of time to then not wear all the hats.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get to a certain level and I can make another investment, either people, tech, infrastructure. At some point, it becomes difficult to get to the next level. And that could be because you're afraid to let go of some of the hats. You're afraid to invest in certain things. Or sadly, it becomes comfortable. Like, I don't know that I need to be the biggest, best, and whatever. So, whatever causes that ceiling, I think there's a lot of agencies that have been in business for many, many, many years and are 500 to $700,000, or that group of agencies wouldn't be the largest group of agencies when you look at the stratification of the number of agencies in our industry. There's a ton of M&A that are buying the middle, like, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of agencies that stay there. And doing that,
Is the middle the 500 to 700? Is that what you're considering middle?
yeah, so if we're looking at the 40,000 independent agencies,
Mhm.
83% are under 1.25 million. And I think 50% of that is 500 and below. So there's a lot of small agencies across the US, and they're not all startups.
Mhm.
Many of them have been in operation for a very long time. So something causes, and I think it's blended roles, makes it very hard for a salesperson and a service person to be successful.
Yeah.
And that is the technician mentality, that we got to do it all, rather than, no, I have to create a sales and service and take a hit on profitability in order to get to the next level. So it all I'm saying is, investing in getting to scale inside an agency can't be overlooked, because that also creates less options when you don't do that. And if you're an agency that is sitting in that revenues, you know, if you're an agency that is that size and you're assuming you're going to command PE dollars and multiples that are in the headlines, it's just not true. That's not accurate.
And you're
So
not.
there's that false expectation as well,
Yeah, yeah. And if you're not going to command that multiple, then you're not going to have that beautiful retirement that
that
you're
you're dreaming of.
that you're envisioning.
That's
Huh.
right.
Okay. Do do you have any war stories? Any stories from the field of you know, you can conflate some of the details, but any war stories of those people who are like, I'm gonna sell and I'm gonna like buy that dream house, you know, out
You
on the
know,
water, and then they get to the table and like, oh my goodness.
yeah, and then they stay and then they keep working, and you see that there's people into their 70s working in an agency, and it's not, and they haven't earned enough in order to be able to provide the lifestyle that they've commanded for themselves. Like, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The profitability has fueled the lifestyle. And now when you're looking at the sale price, you're like, great, that pays for 5 years, but what happens for the other 15 beyond that? Like, what do I do?
That's
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a reality that hits people in the face. Yes,
that is a really good point that if you think that you're going to retire to a lesser lifestyle than you've become accustomed to,
it's hard to do that.
I think that is a lie that you're telling yourself. So if you're used to, and I'm throwing a number out, let's just say you're used to a $250,000 lifestyle, and you'd have to you're relying 100% on the sale of your business to fund that. Um, you probably need to walk away, like net, not sale price, but net somewhere in the 5 to $7 million range, depending on
Right.
how risky you are, and from an investment standpoint. And
Yeah.
at that you're, you know, that's a big risk. So you start doing the math, like, oh my gosh, if I'm a, you know, Yeah,
Yeah,
you
so
start doing the
exactly.
math
You better have you
and
better have other assets, or you better have other revenue streams, or you're going to work in a different way in order to make up that lifestyle, because it's not going to be fully funded by the sale of this one business.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's why I think what you do and what I do blended together gives a pretty nice picture to agents. And 100% agree, if an agency owner out there hasn't thought about this and they need a financial planner, why wouldn't you want someone who at least understands your business side as well? The challenges, the nature of it. I mean, it's incredibly powerful that you actually have the insight on both sides of this in order to help agents, which, it's a pretty unique service out there. There's no two ways around that.
There's something you said that kind of caught my attention that I never really thought about. And I guess it's a value add, where you're talking about you can't specialize if you're not big enough in an agency, you can't specialize. And what I have found and what we've experienced is there was a certain revenue number that we got stuck at.
Mm-hmm.
And like we were there for 2 or 3 years. I'm like, why are we
Mm-hmm.
stuck here? And then we got unstuck. And then we started growing again. And back to this question of working with a financial planner who understands um, the intricacies and the
Challenges.
nuances
Yeah.
of your industry, is there's a really good chance that as I'm talking about retirement investing and building your net worth, that even though people don't hire me as a business coach. I don't hold myself out as a business coach. I don't want to coach you on your business finances. Hire Carey. I can have a conversation with Carey. I'm not going to sit here and run all the numbers for you and help you determine what your EBITDA is or none of that. But there's a really good chance that I've experienced the issue or the problem that you're experiencing. And as a result of that, that allows me to incorporate in the advice that I give to
That's right.
accommodate that, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't fund your retirement account this year because you need to go hire an operations person. So like I know from a value standpoint
Mm-hmm.
that you not making a contribution this year, but hiring that person is going to have a net positive on your net worth to the tune of, I don't know, 100,000 or whatever, making numbers.
Right.
Like,
That
like,
perspective is incredibly important, and someone outside the industry may not know that that's the tipping point, but being able to connect those dots is incredibly unique. So, I think surround yourself with people that have an understanding of your business. And honestly, I give this advice beyond financial planning, but if you need a lawyer, don't
mm,
teach your lawyer the industry. They don't understand the nuances of how
yeah,
the revenue works and how working with carriers work. If you need an accountant, they need to understand. If you have a person doing your accounting work, please, Lord, have them
yeah,
understand insurance and trust accounting. Like all of those things. And there's nothing different than
yeah.
saying, hey, if you have somebody who understands your business, they're going to be so much more impactful than someone who doesn't, and be able to piece all this together. No two ways around it.
100%. I don't have any more questions on this topic. I mean,
I think we killed this topic.
I'm
In
sure we could
fact,
start talking about something totally different, but I don't want to do that because then this podcast will go on um, forever and ever. But I think you and I could probably just, you know, go
we
on
could,
on any
we could.
topic for a long
If
time.
we
But
if we go on for another topic, we have to have those char grilled oysters in that's a requirement, just so you know.
oh my gosh, weren't those so good?
They were very good. Yes.
Oh, you should come back to New Orleans, Carrie.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do
Awesome.
it.
Well, hey, I appreciate you taking time to join us again on the Stuff About Money podcast. Appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.